What is up, people? We are back for another episode of the Mountain Bike Weekly show. It's been many weeks since the last one, many moons, but trying to get in the habit of these again. I actually live in a house now, so hopefully that'll help me be a bit more productive and consistent on the video side of things. But a lot has happened in the mountain bike world since we last chatted. The French have continued world domination on the World Cup circuit. Lewis Buchanan has tried to kill himself on camera twice. Many bikes have been released. I'd say most of them are mid or unrideable. Let's see. Robots are coming for your suspension. The war against pedal kickback is on, and Rampage has happened. So gonna try and dive into all that here. World Cup stuff, I mean, the French are whooping ass. We had Benoit win in Ludenville. Loic Bruni wins the overall. And Dakota Norton continues to prove to us that he is definitely fast enough, but like cursed somehow. Maybe he's cursed himself, but holy shit. The world champs thing and like the weird off-track excursion in Mont Saint Anne, like I was so perplexed, but I don't know. For this off-season, Dak, like you're plenty fast enough. You've got the speed to win. Like I would maybe go to an ayahuasca ceremony in South America, take a lot of shrooms, maybe go to a church of your choice, because we need to uncurse the Mondraker. Maybe put like a dream catcher next to that mass damper, hire a monk to be on staff, put that guy on payroll, and just do whatever he needs to do to get you, to get the spirits on your side for your race runs, dude. Oh yeah, and then Loris won the world championship, so more French doom and gloom on the World Cup circuit. Yeah, Dakota, we need you up there fucking whooping ass. Teach those guys a lesson. Obviously, I'm big fans of all those guys. It just never feels good to be beat by the French. Maybe it's like fine to be beat by the French, but the fact that they're winning this much, world championships, overalls, World Cup wins, I mean, the whole world doesn't need to get slapped around by the French. Moving on, Lewis Buchanan's suicide attempts. So, like, I don't know. I'm calling these suicide attempts just because I feel like that's the main issue here, is that it just didn't seem like Lewis was setting himself up for success. And I think that's the main thing when we're looking at like these pro athletes doing like gnarly stuff, like Tom Van Steenbergen front flipped off a 60-foot drop and nailed it. But like the landing was as good as it could be. He's been training his entire life to do that. But when you look at Lewis's stunts, especially the first one, you're like, dude, the takeoff is like 6 inches wide. The landing looks like shit. It's like, well, no wonder you crashed, dude. It's like, I don't think Lewis is a bad rider, but I don't know. When you're doing something that big and that consequential, it's just kind of confusing. You make it super sketch on yourself. And then the second one, I don't know, like looking at that, it's just like the risk assessment there. It's like, I can't say without being there, but I'm like, dude, just looking at the video, it doesn't look like there's any chance you would have stuck that. So like, I think when people see that, there's a lot of pushback. And like, I'm not saying Lewis isn't, free or shouldn't do what he thinks is right for his own risk assessment. But like, when things go really bad twice in a row, when it looks like the risk assessment was looking a little wacky, people are just like, what's going on here? And that was more my take. I'm like, dude, I'm just confused. Like, I don't really get it. You can only just assume the motivation is to just do it for the YouTube, which is fine. And I think he did finally come around and just like claim it and like be like, yeah, dude, this is my job. And I think that's totally fair. But right after it happened, he was saying all this weird shit like, oh, it's just as risky as riding a green trail, like anything can happen. It's like, dude, that's just like straight up a lie. Like, that's not true. On one hand, he's saying that you could kill yourself doing any line or jump. The risk doesn't really matter, or the difficulty. But then on the other hand, he says he's going to stop doing these stunts. But it's like, okay, if it doesn't matter, like, why would you stop? So I see those as kind of incompatible. And I don't think Lewis necessarily has like a responsibility to set a good example or anything like that. But I do think maybe it's a missed opportunity to kind of really have an open discussion about
risk assessment, ego, what can we learn from this and like provide value to his viewers outside of just like witnessing a crazy crash. Because there is stuff to learn from this, and I've definitely learned the hard way myself. But I think Lewis kind of just took more of a defensive approach to his response.
I think he eventually like owned it, and that's where you got to be. It's like, yeah, dude, this is my job. I'm going to do this shit. But overall, the vibe is just like a little weird. Like it doesn't look or feel in the videos like it's fun. You know, Brendan Fairclough is doing crazy shit, but like he's having a good time with his mates, and like, you know, everyone's version of that is different, and it'll come across different based on your personality. But like looking at the videos, it seems kind of like, damn, this vibe is kind of whack, in my opinion. And then he fucking explodes. So it's like, oh, I don't know. This video just kind of makes me uncomfortable. Anyway, that's my take on it. All right, moving on. Bike releases. Dude, honestly, there's been a lot of bike releases. Not one of them has me excited. Actually, that's maybe a lie. Most of them don't. There was a Mondraker e-bike that came out that looks sick, that has a proper chainstay length. They actually went pretty hard on it, like 460 something for the size large. Actually, the Transition Spire, or no, Sentinel. The new Sentinel just came out. That bike looks good. Like a little, they went shorter on the reach and a little longer on the chainstay, so it puts it in like, I think, a pretty good spot for that style of bike. But everything else, all the Ibises, the Konas, Canyons, Santa Cruz, Hightower, Bronson, Decoy, Da Vinci, Troy, all this stuff. You know, the new Specialized SL e-bike, all short chainstays, all stuff that I'm not that excited to ride. So they're making cool bikes, I think, that work well. If you're a medium-sized rider, I think all those bikes are still probably good options. But for me, puts me in, most of those are fairly firmly in the unrideable category, with a few exceptions. The robots are coming for your suspension. Fox has entered the chat with their electro suspension thing. I have no idea who this is for. Like, do you guys use the lockouts on your bikes? Like, all this stuff, it seems like it's just an evolution of like the Scott freaking triple lockout thing. But like, dude, who locks out their suspension? Like, I do not get it. You know, maybe I'm an outlier here, but the only real reason I see this technology being cool is by doing like the Loic Bruni suspension tune thing, where like you're changing in between tunes on the racetrack. And I think that's what like Frameworks was using that for. But it seems like the way it's packaged for the consumer is that it just locks out your suspension to a degree and then puts it open again. So, I mean, to have all that I just don't get it. So other bike tech news, the war against pedal kickback is in full force. We got the E13 hub-based system, which actually looks pretty sick. And then we've got the RIMPACT chain damper, which is kind of coming at it from a different angle. And it's something I'm kind of curious about. The E13 hub is like, does that kind of help dampen the chain slap with how the cassette moves? Because I feel like that was part of the reason why the O-chain feels good, and what the chain damper is trying to achieve is like just control the energy the chain has when it's slapping around, as well as, you know, pedal kickback. But like, it's kind of, I think that's kind of the discussion, is like, what is like the primary force you're feeling? RIMPACT seems to think it's the chain. So I've got the chain damper here to test, and I've gotten a few rides on it. Feels good. It's different though. It's like way more spring loaded. And like when you're pedaling it initially, like it takes some getting used to. You got to pedal. If you're not pedaling hard, you really got to pedal circles. I don't all the time with my flat pedals. So I'll get into more of that. I'll get more into that later. Okay, we're all, this is good. I'm almost wrapped up. Rampage. I'm really not going to get into the details on this one. Obviously, there's a whole controversy about the judging, but the most recent development is a strike force of riders that I've never heard of pulled up to Brendog's line and laced up the whole thing, which I thought was hilarious. This coming after Brendog and Ollie kind of made the assertion that not any other rider could have ridden some sections on their line or their line at all. And then like this homie on like a jank Rocky Mountain old downhill bike laced up that entire run. So I don't think this really invalidates like some of the judging when it comes to Brendan's score. Like, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think those riders could have pulled up and ridden that line, and Brendog still deserved a higher score at Rampage. Maybe it kind of puts in perspective like the difficulty of some of those features, but the thing is, Brandon had to do those first, and like that is huge. Looking at some of those shoots, and especially that step up onto the rock, it's like once you've seen Brandon's run, you can make sense of it, and like I think you can judge the speed, and you have the confidence to do it. I still think that there's a level of creativity with the building and the vision for the line and just how it presents, even if it's not like as technically challenging or like as big of a stunt as like a tail whip onto a lily pad, that I think matters for Rampage. Maybe Brandon overstated himself when he said any other rider couldn't have done it. I'm sure Brandon Semenuk thought that was hilarious. Brandon could ride that thing and probably flip whip the canyon gap easy. Even there's some stuff on there that like Jordy's drop, it's super intimidating, but you pretty much drop in and it looks like it kind of like auto sends you to the landing. These freaking randos just went and sent it. So yeah, overall for Rampage, like I watched all the Brendan vlogs. They were badass. Like that group of dudes is just fucking hilarious. Like it's the most relatable crew out of any of them. They're just having a good time with their mates, fucking about. It's like being idiots, and it's like it's so funny. Like the shameless merch plugs, like all the songs, like it's just a big joke, but they're also doing like insanely gnarly stuff. You know, out of all this, it's like, sure, if you got a better score, that would have been sweet, but like no one is talking about much else out of Rampage besides this stuff. So honestly, I think Brendan won, you know, like for his sponsors, for his exposure, for his YouTube channel, everything. Like everyone's on Team Brendan. I think he is and always has been like one of the more marketable athletes in this World Cup downhill free ride scene. Like it's hard not to think that guy's just cool as fuck. This is getting a bit long in the tooth, so it's time to wrap this up. But one thing I wanted to do at the end of these videos is just recommend or touch on an old school mountain bike video that got me fired up. I'm pretty well versed in mountain bike video lore, and I think a lot of people like haven't been exposed to this stuff, especially the new generation of riders. It's hard to find, you got to dig deep. So this one's on Pink Bike. Speaking of Ollie Wilkins and Brendan, this is one of my favorite videos. It's the New Old by Tom Grundy, fucking OG video, Pink Bike Lord. And yeah, I'll leave you just with the clip of this. Go watch it. The beat's sick, and Ollie's got such a sick riding style. And like I touched on with the Brendan vlogs, it just looks like they're out with their bros, having a epic time on the hill, eating shit and riding really good. So anyway, check that video out, get fired up, and I'll try and be back with these every week or so. You know, we'll see. But thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.